Welcome in everyone to HogvilleNet YouTube Live. It's my in-game and post-game analysis. Every time I join you here down the stretch, last 10 minutes or so, the Hogs are in a high pressure cooker. Looked like South Carolina to start this second half was going to maybe run away with this thing. Hasn't happened. Arkansas's on a significant run, trailed by as many as 13 points in this half. Gamecocks have really struggled from three. I think started 1 of 13. BJ Mack, who really hurt Arkansas in Fayetteville, just hit a triple. Arkansas's on offense now to stop an Arkansas run. The Hogs down 13 at one point, or a couple of different times in this half, and have went on a run to pull within 6. Mack hits a triple, and then Carolina's back on offense after Arkansas's done a good job at times of running baseline, rim running, getting a nice pass off the cut, and finishing. Carolina's executing offense at one end, so battle scores. Murray Boyles, he's got 20 points now, 9 of 12 from the field. As good as Arkansas has been collectively with some of its frontline players offensively, with Makai Mitchell, some offense from Jalen Graham as well. Brazil, this early 2 triples before picking up those 2 fouls quickly and have to sit the rest of the first half. And Mack has been good at times in this game in double figures as well. But it's been mostly a game about the front court players for both teams. And you've seen battle, scoring for Arkansas as well. In fact, the Hogs' leading scorer probably, he and Makai doing most of the work there offensively. Another turnover for the Hogs. So where the Hogs have really been bad in this game, Arkansas was +2 in turnovers early, sticking out to an 11-3 lead. Murray Boyles again going to work. So Arkansas was within 6, and we've got a 7-2 run here lately for South Carolina. The lead's back up to 11, 60-49, just under 8 minutes ago. By the way, folks, anybody joining me today on HogvilleNet YouTube Live, in-game and post-game, we come to you at second round action in the Nashville SEC tournament. The Hogs under Eric Molson in year 5 have never won consecutive games in an SEC tournament. The Hogs went 1-0 in year 1 before COVID shut it down. The Hogs have gone 1-1 in the past 3 seasons on teams that did better in the NCAA tournament, which is where you want to be playing better, by the way. We know that's an obvious answer. But always 1-1 at best after going 1-0 in year 1. And so the Hogs are looking for their first consecutive. You have to go back to the Mike Anderson era. Anderson had multiple teams in Arkansas win multiple games in SEC tournaments, twice taking the Hogs to the SEC title game, and I think both times losing to Kentucky. But this would be the first time in years if Arkansas could find a way to come back and win this game. We know the Hogs were down to Vandy by 14 at halftime last night. That lead extended to 15-point deficit. The lead for Vandy extended to a 15-point margin, 51-36. Early in that second half, the Hogs fought back. Actually had an 8-point lead with under 2 minutes to go and found a way to find themselves in overtime for going in for back-to-back games, going back to the regular season finale to Alabama. Hogs lost at Bama in OT, found a way to win, went on a big run after falling behind by 2 points early in that overtime against Vandy. The Hogs put up a big run and 10-1 run and closed out a 90-85 win. And so here we are today. The Hogs got off to a good start. What's really hurt Arkansas at one point, South Carolina, was 17-0 in second chance points. In Arkansas's little mini run here to get going from a 13-point deficit down to 6, when they got as close as 6, the Hogs had a couple of putbacks. So that margin shaved it down 17-4. Still, you're getting blown out on the offensive glass. You're getting blown out in those second chance points. The Hogs, I mentioned it early, -2 or advantage by 2, 3-1 in turnovers. From that point forward, with 11 minutes and 15 seconds ago when I did my last stat check, so I don't know what the numbers look like exactly right now as we've moved a little further along and deeper into this second half and into the fourth quarter. Turnovers were in favor of South Carolina 9-4. So after going up 3-1 in turnovers, Arkansas 6-1 disadvantage in turnovers. Points off turnovers, South Carolina at that point 9-5 there. I mentioned 17-0 in second chance points. Arkansas since then had a couple of buckets, second chance buckets. And then you look at points in the paint. When I came on, Carolina was +12 there, 38-26. Arkansas 3-0 advantage in blocks when I came on, 5-3 South Carolina in steals when I came on. and assists were pretty even. South Carolina 11-10. So Arkansas's done a good job of sharing the ball when it has scored. Arkansas does a better job of late, not playing that one-on-one hero ball to find ways to get their offense going, and so you like to see that if you're a Razorback fan. All right, thank you for joining me in HogvilleNet YouTube Live in-game. This will bleed into a post-game analysis. Arkansas's got its work cut out for it to extend its season. I mentioned that Arkansas's never gone 2-0 in SEC tournament play under Muss in 5 years, so there's some history there that could be made if Arkansas were to win this. The other history is bad history. If Arkansas loses, the Razorbacks finish their season. It's over. 16-17, the first overall losing record it would be at the end of a season for the Hogs. You have to go back 14 seasons to John Pelfrey's third team. In 09-10, finished 14-18 overall. The Hogs already locked up the worst SEC mark in regular season play at 6-12 since Pelfrey's 08-09 team, his second Arkansas team, 15 years ago, went 2-14, historically bad. So this was also an historic kind of season when it ends, which could be today. Again, Carolina up 16-49 with about 7:24 to play. Thought Arkansas looked a little bit listless coming out of the locker room, only down 3. And Carolina had closed the first half on an 8-2 run. Arkansas had a 3-point lead, 8-2 run for Carolina. Second consecutive game where Arkansas was beaten by a guard in the paint to beat the buzzer at halftime. And so 8-2 run to put Carolina up by 3 at halftime, 38-35. So flip that 3-point Arkansas advantage. And then extended that out. It was an 8-0 run. Really a 10-0 run to start the second half as as South Carolina extended to a 13-point lead. And ever since then, Arkansas's had an uphill climb. Did get within 6. Now the lead's back to the biggest margin for Carolina after a couple of B.J. Mack free throws. Arkansas's on offense now, so it's 62-49 with 7:12 left. Arkansas comes into this game 0-7 against SEC teams with winning league marks. 0-7. And so Arkansas, if it loses today, would that move that to 0-8. Right now, Carolina's 50th in net. This is a neutral site, so it's a quad 1 result based on today's net ranking. We'd have to see where Carolina is tomorrow. Win or lose, I'm not sure that Carolina moves up. Well, certainly it wouldn't move up with a loss. It'd fall outside of 50, and it wouldn't even be a quad 1 win if Arkansas were to win. If the Gamecocks were to win today, I'm not sure how much it would move up beating a team ranked outside the top 100 in net, even on a neutral court. It might get a little bump, but right now it's a quad 1 result either way. There's 7:08 left. Arkansas's got that 13-point deficit. Eric Melsman is animated on the sideline. We've got a dead ball here, and they're just showing Muss. Looks like something happened here. I guess he was whistled for a technical foul. Because I have the volume off, there's no graphic on the screen to tell me if he picked up a technical, but Arkansas was in possession of the ball when this happened. So B.J. Mack back to the free throw line, sinks both with 7:08 to play. It's a 15-point deficit, the largest of the day for Arkansas. 64-49, Arkansas does retain possession. In the old days, on a technical, you get 2 free throws and then it'd be change possession. It hasn't been like that for a while, so it's obvious that was a technical foul. So Arkansas's got the ball back. Arkansas's been good around the basket for the most part in this game. They just got away from it and to start the second half, settled for deep shots. Not very good looks. Tremont Mark, after having a big second half, after not going scoreless in the first half in the first game, has been quiet, very quiet in this game. Battle's done what he can to score. I mentioned Arkansas's trio of front liners. When you look at even Graham, who we haven't seen in games for a long time, finally gets the call today. But you got to understand, if you're Arkansas, you're trying to advance and win 5 games in 5 days. You had Brazil with the early first half foul trouble, depleting your front line. Lawson's not been real good today. He missed a dunk in transition in the first half, missed another close range shot where no one contested him really around the rim in that first half. It's not been a good game for him. Makai Mitchell's done work, but Arkansas has been good when it's attacked the rim and gotten close to the rim for most of this game. We've seen some close range misses of late. Graham goes 1 of 2, just finished off a 1 of 2 trip to the foul line as Carolina. I'm delaying everything I talk about to make sure that I'm not giving some kind of live play-by-play and it's already been discussed. We're not going to give much play-by-play. Graham, I think it's his second block. Mackay gets another one. So Arkansas is doing a little bit better around the rim right now defensively. Until that play. So I'm not going to describe that. I will say that a good job on a rim run by Carolina. It was a backdoor pass. I think, no, it was just a drive and sort of a collar reach foul by Graham on that play. So we got an and one here opportunity. Carolina's got its biggest lead of the game right now. No free throw conversion, but it's still the biggest lead of the game, 66-50 with about 6.5 minutes to go. Carolina's extending the lead and starting to push this away. There's still time for Arkansas to make a run. No play-by-play. South Carolina's now across midcourt. On its offense, on the previous offensive possession for Arkansas, Graham with a runner goes high of glass and goes for him. So he's a guy that's always been capable offensively. It's defensively and on the glass and some of the physicality and toughness plays. Gray, as a frontliner I haven't mentioned, really hurt Arkansas again today. Player that averages usually 3 or 4 points and typically doubles that or more when he plays the Hogs. It's happened again. Just a slip to the basket, turnover by Arkansas, but a dunk for Gray on the previous possession. So matching that largest lead for Carolina, 68-52 is the score. Now after a turnover, Carolina's back in the front court on offense. So Arkansas's not shot a high volume of free throws. That's something Arkansas's typically got to do to be in games. It's a very physical South Carolina team. Murray Boyles just went to work and schooled Graham again. And that's a trade-off with Graham. He's going to give up a lot defensively. He'll block a shot or two. He'll make, he'll wow you with a skying for a rebound or something. But typically you're going to have a lot of trade-off. You'll get some offense from him, but you trade off in some of the other ways defensively and other parts of the game that matter. I say that Graham whips a no-look pass from the perimeter, was set up for two-man game, whips a no-look pass to a cutting Mackay Mitchell. And Mitchell sliced in for a little 8-footer in the paint, 10-footer in the paint. 70-54, so the largest lead's been 18 points until that bucket. Now it's back to 16. 4.5 minutes to go. Arkansas is going to lose this game in all likelihood. I mean, right now the Hogs are just kind of flat-footed. Another easy score for Carolina. So it's back to an 18-point advantage for the Gamecocks as the Razorbacks are going to wind up, with a losing record for the first time in 14 years. We know the league mark in the regular season was the worst it had been in 15 years. Arkansas is, it eludes Arkansas, winning back-to-back games in SEC tournament play under Musselman now through 5 seasons. It's a clinic now, 20-point advantage. When you really go back to Arkansas's 1-6 start in league play, that's when the Hogs were getting chewed up. Lost at home in the opener to Auburn by 32 points. Lost by 20-plus points on the road and lost, when you looked at some of those results against Florida, Ole Miss. Arkansas lost at home by 13 to the South Carolina team. The Gamecocks had, I think, their largest leads in that game were 19 or 20 in the second half and ended up winning by 13. A little misleading there. We know Oklahoma's final margin win in Tulsa was only 9, but it was 20-plus and felt like that. Arkansas led at halftime against North Carolina in the Bahamas and got blown out in that game. Arkansas's, even after the 1-6 start, 20-plus point losses on the road at LSU was a 21-point loss. The Hogs lost by 29 at home to the best team in the SEC in terms of finishing first place, Tennessee. 29-point loss there. And then the Hogs, better on the road, playing teams like Mississippi State, Kentucky, Alabama, chances to win or finish down the stretch and just couldn't do it. Arkansas is going to go 0-8 against teams in this league that finish with league-winning records. This is just not a good Arkansas team. Playing better at the end of the year, after a 1-6 start, Arkansas will be 6-7 against SEC teams, finishing up regular season play and moving into the SEC tournament. going to split games here 1-1. Again, the advantage for Carolina in this timeout is a 20-point advantage as we move down the stretch of this game. As good as Arkansas was at times at playing around the rim and finishing in the paint, South Carolina was even better. South Carolina was even better, and it was not a good 3-point shooting for the Gamecocks. If it was, this is probably a 30-point margin right now. That's just what it is. I mean, Arkansas didn't get to the free throw line enough, didn't execute well enough in stretches, and Carolina is a really well coached. I mean, just an extraordinarily well coached team. 25-6 coming in, going to move to 26-6, 14-5 against SEC opponents when this thing ends. And again, Arkansas now, when you look back at the arc of the last two seasons, going back 56 games, which takes you back to the start of SEC play, Arkansas last year, counting the SEC tournament, went 9-11 against SEC opponents. This year, the Hogs are going to finish 7-13 against SEC opponents. So simple math. Hopefully, I get this right. That's 16-24. 16-24 when you look at the last two seasons against SEC opponents. That's just not very good. You're below water there by 8 games. And then when you add up all of the results, non-conference play, SEC tournament play, SEC regular season last year and this year, non-conference play this year, NCAA tournament play last year. We know there's no NCAA tournament for this team. The Hogs will be 27-29 in those last 56 games. And so, is that the measurement of where this thing is trending? It's a good case can be made for it was. Let's not also leave out the fact that yet last year's bad run through SEC play, 1-1 finish in SEC tournament, 2-1 run for a Sweet 16, very considerable when you look at how the season finished last year, but they also had a good non-conference. So when you add all that up, it was part of back-to-back Sweet 16, 2 Elite Eights in there, 2 top 4 finishes in regular season SEC play before last season. So Muss has done a great job when you look at more than just one or two things, in the previous 4 seasons. When you really go, again, back to the start of league play last year where they are now, you cannot ignore the Sweet 16 run, but you can point to some troubling areas. I've been talking about is Muss back next year. We'll see. There's been a lot of announcements of agreeing to extensions by some of the top-tier coaches in the SEC in the last 24 hours. Chris Beard at Ole Miss. Lamont Paris, excellent job at South Carolina. Same thing there. I think a 6-year extension. He's going to get paid. He's back. We saw the same thing for Florida's coach Todd Golden today. A considerable extension. He's got to remain the Gators coach. The Gators are going to earn NCAA tournament round regardless of what they do in this SEC tournament. They'll get an at-large bid. I'm hearing Chris Jantz, whose Mississippi State team on the bubble, got a big win today, a tough win over LSU, trailed by 7 at halftime, that he could be soon to an extension as well. Into his second season, I believe, in Starkville. So we're under 3 minutes. The lead still at 20, 76-56. Really, the final score is going to be academic here. This is a game where Carolina controlled tempo, was the more physical team, was the better team at both ends when you look at executing. This is not a good team for Arkansas that executes. It's a team that needed to somehow get South Carolina in foul trouble, run up the free throw attempt numbers, because Carolina's got the advantage there and hasn't been great percentage-wise of the foul line, but doesn't matter. They've held Arkansas in check there. Now it's a lead's expanded to 21 points now as we get to 2 minutes. No need to describe what's going on here at this point. But in Arkansas, you see these coaches around the SEC agreeing to extensions, top-tier coaches, and it's really been quiet on the Arkansas front since the end of last season. When we start talking about what's going on with retention walls, it hasn't been quite everything I've heard about Eric Melsman's expressed interest via third-party channels to move on. For most of this season, actually, the reporting I've given is even before. And we'll see what happens. Again, I've always said I'm only a slight lean. Others tell me it's a higher percentage. I just don't. When you're having a bad season like this, combined with other coaches moving up. You don't know exactly how the dominoes are going to fall in the coaching carousel. They're starting to, just not enough yet. And they will pretty soon. And then there's other factors. Again, I keep saying it, broken record, NIL structures, other things. Maybe there's a raise, maybe there's a temptation to stick around and get, maybe you get more money doing that and get more out of NIL. But I think when you're not on a hot seat, there's no pressure to jump. And if you're interested in leaving, you're looking at moving up likely. And if it's lateral, maybe that's also a possibility. So I don't know what'll be available to us there. I know Arkansas's doing some, not heavy portal recruiting yet. There's not a lot of players in there, but even with the ones that are, Arkansas and Musa, they've been focused on trying to get through this tournament. That ends today. Minute and a half to go. The advantage right now is 19. So they're just playing this thing out. It's just academic. What is the final score? So we'll see. We'll see what happens with Musk. We'll see if there's some announcement for an extension. We'll see how quickly he moves if he's leaving. Again, I'm still, as of now, still a slight lean that he'll be gone because I think he's done a good enough job at Arkansas that maybe there's, if nothing else, a lateral move that entices him for other reasons. Beyond just, but he makes a good salary at Arkansas, one of the best paid coaches, not only in the SEC, obviously in the country. So I'm not convinced he's gone. Arkansas with a baby run here at the end of the game. A minute to go. The advantage is down to 15. But again, it's not going to be enough. Arkansas's had another steal, but I'm interested to see where Battle finishes up. I haven't been able to see his numbers after he just finished a dunk in transition. Did he get to 20 plus again today? Because he's done that in I think it's now with 6 consecutive games coming in. We know 3 of those were 30 plus. One of those was over 40, 42 for the high water mark in SEC play this year and set some other standards. All right, the Arkansas Razorbacks 36 seconds away from the end of their season, trailing by 15 points late. Carolina is going to advance. It's going to be a great matchup as we move along in this SEC tournament because it's a really good league and a deep league. Carolina against Auburn tomorrow. Both of those teams were part of a 4-way tie for second place. Behind Tennessee, 1 game behind Tennessee. So really the 4 teams after Tennessee, you made up your 2 through 5 seeds. Carolina got the 5. Battle just scored again. I'm sure he's over 20 if he wasn't already. He was probably. It's down to 13-point advantage with 20.7 seconds left. Arkansas fouls there. 23 minutes in. Thank you for joining me on HogvilleNet YouTube Live. It's our in-game, post-game analysis. Arkansas was within 6. When I came on, there'd been a mini run there, and you thought, okay, Arkansas's got a chance. Colin Murray Bowles, the freshman, 24 points, only missed 4 field goals today, 11 of 15. Really, really good player. Just as a freshman, a much smarter player than most of Arkansas's guys this year. I hate to talk about it like that when we're talking about basketball smarts, savvy, understanding the way he plays. There's elements of Jalen Williams, not the exact same kind of player, but just that high IQ decision-making in moments that he reminds me of. BJ Mack's another cerebral 6'7", physical, stocky, big that can play at 3 levels really because he can knock down some threes and do other things. He'll pass the ball well. Just a smart, well-coached team. And as good as Muss has been, this has not been his best season as far as not only putting together a team, but getting the most out of it. Game's over. Arkansas has lost to South Carolina. 12 seed Arkansas season ends 80-66. 5th seed South Carolina moves on to play Auburn. The Hogs finished with an overall losing record for the first time in 14 years. Hogs are 16-17. They went 6-12 in league play, counting 2 SEC tournament games, 7-13. The 6-12 was the worst league mark in 15 years. You got to go back to, again, Pelfrey for both of the bad things that I just mentioned for Arkansas this year. Historically, 14 and 15 years ago is when those types of things happened under Pelfrey. 2-14 in league play, 14-18 overall the year after that. So that's how ugly this season was for the Razorbacks. But Arkansas did play better toward the end of the season. Again, a 1-6 start in league play. Finished 5-6 in league games after that. 6-7 when you had these two SEC tournament games. Still below water despite playing better. Is Muss leaving? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I don't have anything, solid that there's a specific thing he's going to do and be gone. I am a slight lean that he won't be back because of all the source information I've had for months, for most of the season before things got ugly, that he was honestly looking for something else and to move on. But leverage could play into this at this point. Not a great season for Arkansas. That might eliminate some things he thought might be open to him. A lot of this stuff's been talked about with specific teams. I've never mentioned specific teams in any of this. I could do that easily because I've got that information and have had it for a while in terms of his interest. Some of it may seem obvious. I've not even gone that far. Now that the season's over, pretty soon I probably will. I'm not going to do it this afternoon. I'm gonna stay away from some of that is related to Muss. But I am a slight lean. Others are much heavier lean. I've heard percentages anywhere from 60 to 85 to 90% that he's gone. I've not. I have refused to move the needle that much because of so many other things at play that are still unknown. The coaching carousel, and how exactly where did Arkansas finish in terms of a bad season? It did not completely implode. There was a lot of off the court stuff, and I think it probably drove Musselman. Some of his feelers that I heard about were for programs that were not would be considered lateral movements. That shocked me a little bit, and then I started to realize not only were they losing, and some of those were historically bad losses, but there was off the court stuff that was really pretty ugly. Some of that calmed down as we move forward here, and Arkansas did play a little better. So they didn't implode. The roof didn't completely cave in, but it was awful. Arkansas finishes, there's only 3 teams out of 14 in the SEC that finished with an overall losing record. Arkansas is one of those teams. Missouri and Vanderbilt were the other 2. I mentioned how historically bad it is both in league play and overall record-wise. Some of the losses were just awful. The worst loss ever at Bud Walton to Auburn. 29-point loss at home to Tennessee. I mean, that's, some of these 20-plus point losses. Then Arkansas did play better against some good teams, but never cashed it in for a win, finishing 0-8. 0-8 against teams with winning league records. There's just not a way to look at that and say, well, Arkansas was a good team at the end of the year. No, the Razorbacks were not a good team. Got their ass handed to them again today after a strong first half and made a little mini run. But you can see the difference in quality of these teams when Arkansas has to face these good teams. Even when the Arkansas competed and was close and had a chance at Alabama, some of that's about matchups. This is not really a good matchup for Arkansas because of how well each player on these teams knows how to execute their role, understands their role, and then there's quality within the talent and skill sets to then execute. And Arkansas is one of those teams, if you watch, no matter how well they'll play for stretches, they'll have a lot of breakdowns defensively. They'll have stretches on offense where they bail out and take tough shots. They'll have mental lapses. And so good teams don't do that as much as Arkansas does, and that's why you've seen this Arkansas team not be a good team this year. All right, 28 minutes in, and look, Eric Musselman's done a great job at Arkansas. When you look at the arc of it, this is the first season in 5 that he didn't win 20 games overall. This is the first season where Arkansas, ends on a really flat note on top of a bad year. Even the first season when he inherited a team, didn't get recruits in there. That's not on him. They found a way to win 20 games, and they did win their first round. A Wednesday game against Vandy, and then the COVID shut it down. Nobody played an NCAA tournament, so you kind of get a pass on that. But even that season ended with a win. None of the other ones did, because unless you win the national championship, no one's winning with a win, ending with a win. But Arkansas did great, getting back-to-back Elite Eights and a Sweet 16 after a program hibernation going back to the early and mid-'90s under Nolan Richardson. Eric Musselman's on no hot seat and should not even be talked in those phrases. I've never talked like that. What I'm talking about is what he wants to do. What is that now? What has Arkansas done maybe to up the ante for him in one way or another? Does Arkansas look to do that? Are the Razorbacks, is Hunter Yurachek and some of those folks, if Musselman is serious about leaving, which I feel certain based on the things I've heard from so many different areas that for the longest time he has, what dynamics change now? things can be fluid. It's not just because I've heard it for a while and it was continuous that means it's going to end up that way. May end up that he stays, but again, we'll see. We'll see. We're hearing a lot of coaches talking, agreeing to extensions or signing him, and these coaches are still in their season too. Lamont Paris was happened yesterday. They play today. Ole Miss was yesterday. They play today. Todd Golden's was today. They Florida plays. I mean, so I hope they have someone decent. I couldn't get to that. Some of these comments coming over, I do such a poor job with that. But I appreciate everyone joining me. Arkansas loses 80-66, second round of the SEC tournament. The Hogs again 0-8. Arkansas has really, in my opinion, one quality win on the season. One quality win. We know that was against Duke, a 5-point win at home. Great game, great win in November, late November, in the first ever ACC SEC Challenge. The Hogs beat a top 10 ranked team, a team that's still one of the best teams in the country as the dust starts to settle on regular season and tournament play, looking ahead to NCAA tournament. Great win. You go all the way back to October, and Arkansas beat a really, really good team, Purdue team in overtime, by the way, speaking of overtime games, in exhibition. And people can laugh about that, but I'm telling you, the house was packed. Both teams brought it. Both teams wanted to win. Arkansas was just the better team. You can look at it statistically in that game. There was no fluke. But so one game that counted, one game that didn't, and outside of that, Arkansas swept an A&M team that still has work to do to get off the bubble. A&M finished 9-9 in league play. So Arkansas right now, as the season ends for Arkansas, never defeated a team with a winning record in the SEC play. Now, as far as the regular season goes, that will hold true. If A&M can get on a run and finish with a winning record counting all SEC games, then we can go back and correct it a little bit and add the caveat that Arkansas did sweep a team that finished with a winning record against league teams. But we're not there yet, and we don't know what's going to happen with A&M. The Aggies have Ole Miss tonight, and the Aggies just curb stomped Ole Miss in the regular season. I think in the regular season finale just a few days ago on the road at Ole Miss, and so maybe advantage Aggies here turning around and playing the Rebels again. So, and then A&M would have Kentucky, Florida, and Georgia play the late game tonight. The winner of that game, Georgia obviously defeated Missouri yesterday, gets Alabama. And now the quarterfinals are set on the other side of the bracket: Auburn, South Carolina, Tennessee, Mississippi State. Man, I mean, these are some great matchups. And so, had Arkansas moved along today, that's a Cinderella story immediately. Despite how good Arkansas has been in the previous 3 seasons, it's a shocking Cinderella story to that point. 2 or 3 or 4 games out of 33, that's great. Yeah, I mean, Arkansas just didn't have quality wins. Technically, the Hogs, I think, now are 2-10, 2-9, or 2-10 in quad 1 games. Arkansas's got that quad 4 loss to Vandy at home. Arkansas's got a quad 3 loss to Greensboro in non-conference play at home. Most of Arkansas's win. Arkansas's got a dreadful quad 2 resume, I think 1-5. So, Arkansas finishes with 16 wins, 17 losses, and most of those wins, 13 of them, if my math is right, were quad 3 or quad 4, with a couple of quad 3/quad 4 losses. And so the record was just dreadful when you looked at. So I guess Arkansas 10, 1-5, 15. Yeah, that makes sense. So 10 losses in quad 1, 5 losses in quad 2, only 2 wins in quad 1, 1 win in quad 2, and then 13-2 when you add quad 3 and 4. I mean, Arkansas is a bottom feeder in the SEC. The Hogs technically last year were a bottom feeder. Finished 10th in the league. Similar to where Mississippi State is the 9 seed today. Similar, 8-10 in league play this year for Mississippi State. That's what Arkansas was last year. Picked up that crucial first round win. Mississippi State's really on the bubble, though. Arkansas was not. Arkansas had a quality non-conference. And so, but again, when you look at the last 56 games, Arkansas 27-29. That takes you back to the SEC opener, regular season opener last year. And again, I don't want to ever leave out the Sweet 16 run and some of the other things Arkansas did. Portal recruiting will pick up. I'll be surprised if Muss isn't on the phone even tonight with some players as soon as tonight, or certainly in the next few hours, if not tonight, into tomorrow. One of those could be, very well, maybe Cameron Hunter. I've reported the UCA transfer and Bryant native who didn't play this year at UCA, visited Arkansas, unofficial visit after having two all Atlantic Sun seasons as a freshman and sophomore at UCA, going back to last season. Was in the portal this time last year, like he is now. Took an unofficial visit to Arkansas, had the Hogs in his final five. Committed to Butler, backed out of that, stayed at UCA, got injured in October, a foot injury that's fully healed now during a close scrimmage in October. Never played this season. Back in the portal. Arkansas has been in contact with him, I can tell you that much. And with his camp, other teams, Michigan, Georgetown, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, New Mexico State, and a host of other high majors and mid majors have already reached out one way or another. Arkansas has. We'll see if how soon and if and when that becomes a conversation with Muss and Cameron Hunter. But 6'3", sturdy guard, averaged 16 points a game last year. I talked about this yesterday in the in-game post-game. But he's a guy that can play some bully ball, very physical player, strong, tough defender, and is a determined competitor. One of those guys that is always trying to plug in to be a winner. And so this could be a player that Arkansas looks at. Arkansas really struggled. Struggled mightily with point guard play all year. L. Ellis was the guy that was really projected in the offseason to be the guy. The Arkansas was really going to try to ride that Musman, and he just missed that. He missed on it. Not going to sit here and bag on Ellis. He's done, and Arkansas's best wins this year, some of their best games, he's had good performances, but he's not been a true floor general. Most of that's been where his offense is clicking a little bit, scoring the ball, and when he's kind of in a rhythm, then he seems to pass better and make better decisions at times. But Keon Minifield Jr., who didn't even make this trip, working on academics. That's the second time we've heard that story this year. Jalen Graham previously. Graham on the floor for the first time in a while today. Helped Arkansas a little bit offensively. The trade-off is usually defensively and on the glass. We saw some of that. If you really look at Arkansas's improvement down the stretch, Tremont Mark had a solid season. No Arkansas Razorbacks, I haven't talked about this. I didn't see a point in bringing up that Arkansas didn't get any postseason honors for all SEC teams. Are you kidding? Really? No. And that's nothing against any individual, but you got to be better than Arkansas was. You got to win some games that matter, in my opinion, to be selected. You'd have to be consistently like a Mason Jones was, who had 9 games with 30 or more. I understand Tremont Mark was consistently a good scorer for the most part, and then Battle had those explosive games. But at the very end of the season, it's just not a consistent enough body of work to give a nod to players like that, in my opinion. But having said that, Arkansas's had just I guess if you look back on it, who are the guys that stood out at the end of a bad season as being guys that maybe you would want back if you could get them back? I think the obvious answer for me is Tremont Mark and Caleb Battle. Now we'll see what happens there. I tend to believe those guys might be looking at pro opportunities. They'll consider that, but they may favor that. We'll see. Maybe not. We'll see if Muss is back. That's going to play into some of this. Devo Davis still has a COVID year of eligibility remaining. Honestly, right now, looking at what he was at this season, and certainly after departing again for a few games, coming back, in my opinion, it was his worst season as a Razorback. Not only because of what happened with the team, but his own individual part of that. When you look at his entire career, this is a guy that was a great Razorback. He just was. What he meant in postseason, when you look at some of his career numbers, he's an elite company. He should not be remembered, in my opinion, for this season. Arkansas doesn't have back-to-back Sweet 16s with 2 Elite Eights without Devo Davis. What a great career, but I'll be surprised if he's back. But again, if Arkansas has a coaching change, you never know what dynamic could play in there. I think if Muss is back, I would lean more to Debo's gone if Muss is back than staying. I could be wrong about that. He's got some pretty nice NIL setups, and we'd have to just see how that works and what that would look like. And I would never count him out for having a turnaround because he's been, like I said, he's been one of the better players in the program. You have question marks, I do, about Keon Minifield Jr., who has eligibility. Layden Blocker, you know. So, what happens there? I said this yesterday in postgame. I'm going to say it again. There are going to be players who are going to jump in the portal as soon as possible, which could be as soon as Monday when the portal opens up for everybody. That could happen. Does Arkansas make the NIT? Unless the NIT changed its criteria, I don't remember the NIT ever taking a team with an overall losing record. Arkansas's, came into today ranked 112th in net. If I said earlier 109th, it was actually 112th. And the Hogs were, losing today by a double-digit margin in a neutral site, even though it's Carolina was only 50th in net. I can't imagine Arkansas moving up any. I just don't think Arkansas's got the net resume if they would take a team with a losing record, and I don't think you reward teams with NIT bids with overall losing records. I just don't. I don't see any path for Arkansas in the NIT. If there's something that's changed and the NIT simply doesn't care and wants to figure out a way to put Arkansas at home in Bud Walton and hope that they'd sell tickets, Arkansas couldn't sell tickets in some of these more marquee league matchups moving down the stretch. I mean, the tickets were already sold, but they couldn't even fill the place. At this point, you'd have to sell tickets. And I just don't think Arkansas would sell enough to even justify the NIT doing something insane and inviting a team with a losing record. They probably have it in their rules not to even do that. I don't know. I don't know the answer because they've made some changes, but I'd be shocked. So that was answering somebody's question there. But again, who does Arkansas bring back? What do those dynamics look like? Some players are going to jump in the portal as soon as possible. Could see it as soon as Monday when the portal opens up to everybody. Does Arkansas have a coaching change before then? I don't even know the answer to that. I'd be surprised. But if they did, that would let players get in the portal even sooner, probably. Monday's not far away. Here we are on Thursday, so I doubt that happens. I just doubt there's any movement for someone like Muss that quickly. You just never know what other dominoes fall in the next few days, how quickly they might fall. The other thing is, I think, when you really break this down, I think there'll be some players that could return. There'll be some serious discussions about roles and other things and determinations made based off of that. And then I think some of the other names I mentioned, it's the pro stuff and it's other things. Trevor Brazil is another question mark. It's really going to depend on, how, to me, he's got to test the waters for the NBA draft. He's been a guy that's been projected for a long time as either a first, maybe second round guy. He's got the measurables. There's a lot of stuff he's missing as far as a finished product for the college level, let alone NBA. And there's some things that concern me about him. And then the injury stuff, how healthy is he? He's played, he had the double-double yesterday, got off to a great start today, got in foul trouble and was never quite the same here in this game. But what could a Trevor Brazil, to me, it's a no-brainer to test the NBA draft waters, but does he hire an agent and stay in for some pro opportunity and hope that it's the draft? Or does he consider, given that he only played in basically eight games a season ago due to the knee, had issues staying on the court this year, had an ankle problem as well, knee soreness, didn't have a great season, did ramp things up here at the end. Two of these last three games, in fact, before today, 2 games in a row, he scored in double figures. Hadn't done that in a while. That double-double was the first one he had since November, and he had 3 there in late November, including that big win over Duke I talk about a lot, 19-11 and 2 blocks in that game. So we'll see about Brazil. Makai Mitchell, Jalen Graham, L. Ellis, those guys are finished. Chandler Lawson, I'm pretty sure. I think he's completed his eligibility. I'm not. He had 2. Yeah, this was his 5th season to compete. He had 2 years at Oregon, 2 years at Memphis, and now a year at Arkansas. So he's completed his. I think Denaje Harris is done. Didn't factor in. You look at guys like Bayfall, Joseph Pinion, Layden Blocker, Keon Minifield Jr., young players, plenty of eligibility left. What do those guys do? Wouldn't be surprised if at least a couple of those names pop into the portal pretty quickly. And as many as three, maybe all four at some point. We'll see. We'll see what happens there. Again, I'm not sure where Arkansas is in its coaching situations moving ahead. This was not a good year for Eric Musselman in terms of his brand and value relative to if you're looking for departure points and you start kind of putting those feelers out early in a year. You probably think you're going to do a lot better than this based on your previous three seasons and how you felt you recruited, brought all this experience, and it just kind of blew up on you. It didn't implode, but it certainly relative to a national top 15 preseason ranking, a top three prediction for the SEC finish preseason, two SEC preseason all conference projections in Brazil, and Devo Davis. If you were going to look at anyone in Arkansas who would be deserving, I just went through why I didn't think anybody was deserving. But it wouldn't be those two guys even in a conversation like that. They'd be down the list, way down the list. You'd have to start with, again, Tremont Mark, Makai Mitchell, and Caleb Battle in a talk like that. By the way, I didn't mention Jeremiah Davenport's name. He played his fifth and final season. He played his COVID year this year. He's out of here. There's going to be a lot of portal recruiting. We know Arkansas picked up two players out of the high school ranks in the early signing period. We'll see what happens there again. Muss is not typically a guy that turns to freshmen who are not, 5-star or projected first round type guys. I think the exceptions were Devo Davis and Jalen Williams, who I always thought Jalen Williams was going to develop into an NBA player, and he has. I saw that back when he was in 10th grade. I started to make that turn. I wasn't necessarily sure where Devo would go, but he's been great at Arkansas. But Moses Moody, Nick Smith Jr., Anthony Black, Jordan Walsh, those were all no-brainers. You had basically 5-star guys, even though Moody had slid out of that, had been a 5-star for a while. They were all projected first round, maybe second round NBA picks and thought to be one and dones before their careers started as they were coming in. And so Musselman, based out of talent need, you're not going to win at this level without a mix of talent that you recruited out of high school and out of the portal. Musselman has really trimmed down his high school recruiting the last two cycles. Bayfall, who was not projected despite being a McDonald's All-American and slid out of 5-star status at the end of his high school career. Bayfall and Layden Blocker were not projected as draft type players in this class. Neither are the two that are coming in when you look at Jalen Shelley and Isaiah Elohim, a guard, a wing, and a combo forward. And so, typically if it's not some of these higher rated guys that look like they have immediate pro careers coming up, it's a slow burn getting them into the lineup and must trust in younger players that are inexperienced. We saw it again this year. We saw it with Chance Moore, who left. We've seen it with Jackson Robinson, who was recruited, top 100 guy, 4-star, who left, 6th man of the year. I mean, there's so many guys that have come in, and I'm not saying all this to fault Musselman. I'm talking about what he typically does. I think for the most part, it's worked out for the Hogs. This year, it didn't. But you're talking about one season in a vacuum, which wouldn't be fair. I mean, you got to look at the last 3 years. Despite the poor play in SEC play last year, the last 3 seasons are satisfactory for most any program out in the country. Even the Blue Bloods that haven't sparked themselves into Final Four runs would take back-to-back Elite Eights followed by a Sweet 16. Even some Blue Bloods would be glad to have a 3 consecutive season stretch like that, and that's where Arkansas was. So Eric Musselman's done a great job at Arkansas at the helm. He's done nothing to put himself on a hot seat, in my opinion, and I think he'll have some choices here. Are they the choices that are enough to move the needle to leave? I think there might be some that are there. That's why I'm a slight lean. But again, there are other factors that are fluid. I think I'm hearing, I don't have solid details and numbers to firm up how has NIL really gotten better. I've just heard little pocket things here and there that it may be turning in the right way. And that would be something if you could package that with some other reason, some other way to raise Musselman and retain him, that maybe that's a game changer. Another game changer could be if you're playing poker and you don't want to do that, which I'm not going to tell Hunter Yerichek what to do, but who knows what's really going to be available from us to push him out, to encourage him to go on his own, not push. I didn't mean it that way. I said that, but I meant encourage, push himself to be enough of a push to say, yeah, I'm going to go do this. So maybe if that's not there, you don't have to incentivize a lot. But I do think, NIL now trumps everything else. Facilities, exposure, being coached up, development, fan base, all that stuff to me is all after NIL now. These players, if you look at the way college basketball has moved the last few years, not just with the open market, transfers getting immediate eligibility, players playing at 2 and 3, sometimes 4 different schools in their career, they're treating the college game like pro free agency. Now they're getting paid, and they consider themselves on a trek, on a path, especially at the high major level, to pro career. Now they're already pros, really. And so if that's their viewpoint and vantage point, it's less and less about building relationships and recruiting with coaching staffs, and having a father figure on campus. I mean, think about how old and dusty those concepts sound. When a handful of years ago, even then that sounded kind of old. But NIL hadn't really kicked in. It was more about players moving around a lot. But 6, 7, 8 years ago, coaches still recruited based on those philosophies. Maybe not even that long ago. Maybe 5 years ago, some were still doing that. But now it's about the bag, and so how can Arkansas compete there? Arkansas is going to have to shore that up, and certainly whether you're keeping Muss or getting another coach, that's going to be important. So I still think, again, a slight lean. I'm going to put a percentage on it, just very slight, that he won't be back, but that could change at any minute, any hour, based on anything that happens. In terms of some of those things I just talked about and lack of other opportunities. We may not hear something quickly. It depends on how fast the coaching dominoes start to fall too around the country. So those things are going to pick up rather quickly, but how long does it take for more and more to fall that open up opportunities that, and I think the longer it goes, on something like that, you got to start thinking with no announcement of some kind of extension or something that potentially, there's interest in still seeing what's out there and how to manage that to move on. But, again, that's also speculation on my part. All right, the Arkansas Razorbacks season came to an end today. We were on for an hour yesterday. We're gonna get to an hour today. 52 minutes over. I'm gonna stay on a little while. Razorbacks 80-66. South Carolina had a 19, 20-point lead in Fayetteville in the second half, ended up winning by 13, 77-64 back in January. Very similar situation here. I think Arkansas was competitive most of the first half and had a little run there early in the second half. But Arkansas had a mini run in the second half in Fayetteville, if I'm not mistaken. The lead was up to 19 or 20, somewhere there, and I think Arkansas got it down within 7, maybe, if I'm thinking of the right game. And then Carolina's pulled away and won by 13. Well, same kind of thing here. And Carolina led by 20 plus in this game in the second half and then settled for a 14-point win. Very similar. Superior team today. I mean, it's just, when you watch the execution, because this is not where you look at one team and go, wow, they got a ton more talent in Arkansas. No. I can make arguments that in certain positions, Arkansas got more talent. It's everything else. It's between the ear stuff. It's execution stuff. It's sticking to game plan and players understanding their roles and not, limiting mistakes, finding ways to win this part of the game, put all that together. Arkansas has been so enigmatic and so Jekyll and Hyde with so many things. And I think that starts from the top. I do. I don't think this has been Eric Musselman's best season. It goes all the way there, all the way down. Again, we're not talking about should he be on a hot seat? Does he no longer know how to coach? Nobody's saying that. From top down, this was nobody's best performance, including the head coach. And Eric Musselman's done a fabulous job at Arkansas, the best coach at Arkansas in decades, going back to the 90s. Does he do everything as well as coaches like A.A. Sutton and Nolan Richard did? No, I don't think so. I think those guys, and they're Hall of Fame coaches. So Eric Musselman's not been on that level, but he's been really damn good. And in some ways, you could argue, not far behind in some ways on some of the things those guys did. So make no mistake, Eric Musselman will be picking and choosing here. It'll be on him whether he stays or goes. As well it should be. All right, and he's done again, even at the end of this season, a few weeks ago, this could have been an implosion situation. Um, this could have turned into an implosion situation. I'm going to go back to the Caliph Battle indefinite suspension that was never made the light of day. It was never announced by the university. He never missed a game. But the LSU road game, where Arkansas lost by 21, he played in the first half. There was an exchange of stuff that happened at halftime. Didn't play in the second half. But Arkansas did not have a midweek game. That was a Saturday game. So Arkansas was bridging over until the next Saturday the next Saturday was the home game against Georgia. And the Hogs didn't play. They didn't have a midweek game. So Battle did not practice early in the week. He was on indefinite suspension. I was able to confirm that. But I was told that it may not, they didn't know how they were going to announce it or make it public. And I started to then think, with no midweek game, could it be possible, based on the idea of not announcing it, that they would lift it at some point and he would meet whatever requirements to be reinstated? Sure enough, some photos emerged from U of A practice. I think it was Thursday of that week, later in the week, getting close to that home game against Georgia on Saturday. And he was seen in practice photos. Also, but on that Monday is when Musselman, on his radio show, the same day Battle didn't practice earlier that week, Musselman on his radio show announces that Devo Davis would be returning after missing 3 straight games. So at one point there was uncertainty about Battle moving forward, even with an indefinite suspension. I'm told it might have been more than that or not coming back. Just going to throw that out there now. And then Devo was either invited back or whatever happened there. And I think for optics reasons, because of everything that had been going on with Brazil out and some other stuff that was floating around out there and all kinds of drama, I think that for program optics as much as anything, the decision was made to not have any more things happen. Again, I think Arkansas was teetering on implosion there for a little bit. But you got Devo back, who helped Arkansas at times. You had Caleb Battle back. We saw what he did in these last 7 games. And Arkansas won a little bit. Arkansas never beat a good team. Arkansas never beat a good team once they got into league play. And really, you only had one good win in non-conference play. That was against Duke. So, we can count, I guess, watch what A&M does in this tournament and tell ourselves, if they do better, that Arkansas can count some of that. And fairness is fairness. We can go back and add that in. But 16-17 is what it is, as is, now 7-13 against league opponents after going 9-11 against league opponents last year. Again, last 58 games, 27-29. What happens next? What happens next? That's what I've got my eye on. And again, I've gone through and sung Musselman's virtues. I think he's been one of the best preparation coaches you've seen in college basketball. At Nevada and then at Arkansas, how he games plans for matchups and things. In game, there were times I thought he was really good. Other times I thought not. Some of his philosophies on how to deal with late game scenarios, sometimes I'm opposed to those. Sometimes they worked out. Other times they haven't. I think the biggest thing this year is he's been mostly hit success in recruiting when you talk about what he's done in the portal. There have been some misfires. This year, the talent was there with what he got, but the pieces didn't mesh. There was a huge lack of toughness, mentally and physically, on this team for most of the year. And guys understanding to fully buy in, because details and attention to detail matter. And they matter to Musselman. And you're seeing the SEC continue to get better with the coaching hires some of these other programs have made. And they're bringing in some heavy hitters. And some of these guys are playing kind of like Arkansas. I mean, this South Carolina team, right now reminds me a little bit, in terms of where it is in its season, of Arkansas' second team under Muss. When you look at their record right now and where they're at, I wouldn't say they've have as good of players. I don't see a lottery pick on their team like Arkansas had Moses Moody, but just in terms of how solid that team is, Arkansas is far away from that. Even Arkansas's team last year, 5-game winning streak in league play, that was nice, but lost its last 3 regular season games, went 1-1 SEC tournament, and then that run in the NCAA tournament was a thing of beauty. You can't see it in any other way for a team that finished 10th in its league and knocked off a defending national champs and a 1 seed in its region. I mean, look at the wins Arkansas's had under Musselman. Look at the packed houses at Bud, just wild shit. Knocking off number 1 Auburn a couple of years ago at home in February. That wasn't early league. That was February. Knocking off a top 10 ranked Kentucky team that same season, splitting with Tennessee, beating Gonzaga, the #1 overall seed in the NCAA tournament 2 years ago, and the #1 ranked team in the final AP poll. Knocked that team off to advance and move on to the Elite Eight, and lost to Duke, who would play in the Final Four. Knocking off Kansas, like I just mentioned, defending national champs. A lot of big wins at Arkansas under Eric Musselman. It's just that really now, when you look at this season and then again league play last year, I think we're starting to see, how does he recalibrate? I think some of the guys on the front line, there have been some real question marks there on what those guys have brought to the table. As good as Makai Mitchell's been, these last 10 games or so, you hate to say that he didn't make progress, because I think he did. But man, you would have liked to see more of that from him in these 2 seasons more consistently. And there are letdowns with him too, even when he's playing better. And it's just, and that's going to happen no matter how good teams are. They'll have their stretches, but Arkansas has always been able to break out of those funks and get everybody bought in and on the same page for the most part, and under Musselman, until really when you look at this entire season. And they didn't really ever get to that point. They just never got to that point. All right, we reached an hour. I'm going to cut this short, an hour and a minute. I want to thank everyone for joining me on HogvilleNet YouTube Live in-game and post-game. Obviously, it's the last time we do any kind of pre, in, or post-game. I've been doing them all year. I want to thank my sponsors, Jose's Bar and Grill in Tawnytown. They're in Northwest Arkansas, where I did a lot of pregame shows this year on site before making the short drive down to Fayetteville to cover the Hogs at Bud Walton Arena. I've really enjoyed this, but we're not done. We're actually going to be on doing YouTube Lives if we have to do them daily, because things are going to really start to happen with portal recruiting, the coaching carousel, and other things, even NIL. We're going to have reasons to talk. I think there'll be staff changes at Arkansas, even if Muss stays. I think at least one. You never know how many more. Usually each year there's at least one significant and a few others when you start looking really down the line in the admin part of it. So we'll have plenty of things to talk about. So I don't know exactly when we'll be back on. I don't know that we're at a point yet where we need to do this daily, but we might. But I want to thank everybody that joins me on these. I enjoy it. Been doing this, going back to last season. Here we are, wrapped up year 5 under Eric Musselman. Man, these have kind of gone by fast. But we talked a lot about it. Arkansas ends its season today, 16-17 overall, 7-13 against SEC teams. No NCAA tournament for the first time after back-to-back Sweet 16s with a couple of Elite Eights. 80-66. Arkansas ends its season today against South Carolina. Until the next time, I'll see you then.